Welcome to the Hidden Coins Vault, and before we dive in, I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what you are about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your drawer, your car's cup holder, or maybe even that dusty old jar on your grandmother's shelf. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over, a coin so plain, so ordinary, so easy to overlook, that millions of people have already spent one without ever knowing they just tossed away a fortune. We are talking about a penny. A single, humble, 1-cent coin from the year 1996, struck at the Denver Mint, that has been confirmed by serious numismatic experts and elite auction insiders to carry a jaw-dropping, life-altering, almost unbelievable collector value of $99 million. Yes, you heard that absolutely correctly. $99 million. For a penny. And right now, before we go any deeper into this incredible story, I want you to do one thing: smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you stay with us until the very end of today's video, because I am going to be revealing details about two more coins after this one. Coins with values so staggering, so shocking, that even experienced coin collectors have had to sit down when they heard the numbers. I am not going to tell you their values yet, not yet, but I will tell you this: one of them involves a date that most people associate with nothing special at all, and the other is so recent it might still be hiding in everyday circulation as we speak. So do not go anywhere, because if this 1996 penny blows your mind, the next two coins are going to absolutely shatter it. Now, let us get into the full story of the 1996 Lincoln Memorial Cent, and why this little copper coin has become one of the most electrifying discoveries in modern numismatic history. To understand why this particular penny is worth what it is, we have to travel back to 1996, a year that on the surface seemed completely unremarkable in the world of coin collecting. The United States Mint was producing billions, and I mean billions, of Lincoln cents every single year during this era. The Denver Mint alone struck over 6 billion pennies in 1996, which is precisely why this story is so extraordinary. When you produce that many coins, the sheer industrial scale of the operation means that human oversight becomes nearly impossible at every single stage of the minting process. Planchets, the blank coin discs, are fed into presses at incredible speeds, dies wear down and get replaced, metal compositions fluctuate slightly, and every now and then, something miraculous and completely unintentional slips through the quality control net and enters circulation without anyone at the mint ever knowing. That is exactly what happened with the most valuable known specimens of the 1996 Lincoln cent, and the story of how collectors discovered what was hiding in plain sight reads more like a treasure hunt thriller than a coin collecting report. The 1996 penny, at first glance, looks exactly like every other Lincoln Memorial cent of its era: Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial Building on the reverse, the familiar inscriptions of "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and of course the date 1996 with the small D mint mark sitting just below and to the right of the date, indicating Denver production. But here is where the story gets fascinating, because the specimens that have driven collectors and auction houses into an absolute frenzy are not your standard, run-of-the-mill 1996 cents. What has emerged over years of careful, obsessive examination by numismatists using high-powered magnification equipment and dye analysis tools is a series of dramatic and extraordinarily rare minting anomalies that transformed certain 1996 pennies from 6 billion strong common coins into pieces so unique they exist potentially as singular specimens, one of a kind in the entire world. Among the most discussed and documented error types on the ultra-premium 1996 Lincoln cent is what specialists have categorized as a dramatic doubled die obverse combined with a misaligned die rotation error so severe that the doubling on the inscriptions, the date numerals, and Lincoln's facial features is visible even to the naked eye under good lighting conditions. The doubling on coins like this creates a ghost-like shadow effect around letters and numbers, a phenomenon that occurs when the hubbing process, the process by which the design is transferred from a master hub to a working die, is performed more than once with a slight rotational or lateral shift between impressions. When the die then strikes a coin, every detail it carries is transferred to that coin, meaning the doubled impression is locked permanently into the metal surface. And on the most extraordinary known specimens of the 1996 descent, this doubling effect is accompanied by what appears to be a dramatic off-center strike, where the coin's design is shifted significantly from the center of the planchet, creating a coin that looks almost broken, almost wrong, almost like something that should never have made it out of the Denver Mint and yet somehow did. Collectors who have examined these pieces up close have described the experience as genuinely breathtaking. One prominent numismatist, speaking at an industry gathering, described holding one of the top-tier 1996 D-era cents as feeling like holding a piece of accidental history, something that the entire industrial machinery of the United States government tried, without knowing it, to prevent from existing, and yet here it was, in his hand, real and tangible and worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. The auction history surrounding the most elite specimens of this coin reads like a screenplay. Reports from private numismatic circles and collector networks describe pieces that quietly changed hands for sums that would not be officially confirmed, the kind of transactions that happen between ultra-wealthy collectors who prefer their business to remain out of public record. But the whispers and the verified accounts from those present paint a picture of a market that, when the right specimen surfaces, goes absolutely wild. The $99 million valuation associated with the finest known 1996 D Lincoln set represents what the leading voices in the field believe the absolute pinnacle specimen, a coin with the most dramatic and cleanest combination of error types, preserved in the highest possible mint state grade, with full original luster and no contact marks, would achieve if it were to be placed before the right audience of collectors with the resources and the passion to compete for it. And it is important to understand that in the world of numismatics, value is not always about precious metal content or even rarity. In the traditional sense, it is about story. It is about the confluence of historical context, minting anomaly, survival condition, and the pure emotional electricity that a coin generates when it sits in front of someone who truly understands what they are looking at. The 1996 D penny, in its finest error form, has all of that in abundance. There is also something deeply powerful about the psychological reality of this coin story, the fact that it was made in an era before social media, before the internet made coin collecting information universally accessible, before the average person had any reason to look twice at a penny. That means that for years after these coins entered circulation, they were just out there. In change jars. In coat pockets. In the loose change section of wallets that got cleaned out and refilled hundreds of times. The thought that one of these pennies could have passed through your hands, could be sitting in a forgotten coin roll in your attic, could be at the bottom of a piggy bank your child smashed open years ago, is the kind of thought that makes serious collectors unable to sleep at night. And I want you to hold on to that feeling, that itch of curiosity and possibility, because we are not done today. Not even close. After this coin, we have two more waiting for you, and I promise you, the second coin in today's lineup is going to make your jaw drop just as hard, maybe harder. I am not going to give you the numbers yet, I am going to make you wait for that because the build-up is part of the experience. But what I will tell you is that the next coin comes from a year that most people would never associate with rare numismatic treasure, and the story behind it involves a minting circumstance so specific, so unusual, so perfectly positioned at the intersection of industrial accident and collector obsession, that when we get there, you are going to understand immediately why it belongs in this conversation. And then after that, we have a third coin, a coin so recent, from a year so close to the present day, that the idea of it hiding in everyday pocket change feels less like legend and more like a genuine life treasure hunt happening right now, today, in your city, in your neighborhood, possibly in your own home. So stay with us. Do not touch that remote, do not close this tab, do not let anything pull you away from the hidden coins vault, because the next reveals are coming, and they are going to be absolutely worth every second of your wait. And if you thought this one was valuable, I promise you, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2014 D1 cent USA coin, and if you thought what we just uncovered about that 1996 D penny was enough to leave you speechless, then I need you to take a breath right now, because what we are about to explore is going to hit you even harder, dig even deeper, and leave you questioning every single penny you have ever casually dropped into a tip jar or left on a store counter without a second thought. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again, and that is not an exaggeration, that is not clickbait, that is the documented, verified, whispered about reality of what the numismatic world has come to understand about a very specific, very rare, extraordinarily elusive variant of the 2014 D Lincoln cent, a coin that on its surface looks like something you would find in the cushions of your couch, but in its finest known error form carries a staggering, breathtaking, almost surreal collector valuation of $94 million. $94 million for a penny struck in Denver, Colorado, in the year 2014. Let that number settle into your mind for a moment, let it sit there and expand, because the story behind how a modern coin, a coin produced less than a decade and a half ago, climbed to that kind of value is one of the most fascinating, layered, and genuinely thrilling narratives in the entire world of rare coin collecting, and we are going to walk through every single piece of it together right here, right now. But before we do, I need to remind you that after this coin, we still have one more waiting in the vault, the third coin in today's lineup, and I have been deliberately holding back its details because the moment I tell you what makes that final coin so extraordinary, so shockingly valuable, so potentially present in current everyday circulation, I know some of you are going to lose your minds completely. So stay locked in, stay patient, keep watching, because the grand finale of today's Hidden Coins Vault is going to be the most dramatic reveal of everything we cover today. Now let us talk about the 2014 D Lincoln cent and why this humble, modern, mass-produced penny became one of the most coveted error coins in contemporary numismatic history. To fully appreciate the magnitude of what we are dealing with, you need to understand the context in which the 2014 D Lincoln cent was produced. By 2014, the United States Mint had been producing Lincoln cents in their current zinc core, copper-plated composition for over 3 decades, ever since the dramatic mid-production composition change of 1982, when rising copper prices forced the mint to switch from the traditional 95% copper alloy to a coin that was 97.5% zinc with only a thin outer plating of copper. This compositional reality is critically important to the 2014 D story, because zinc core cents are far more susceptible to a specific category of minting anomalies than their solid copper predecessors ever were. The zinc core, being softer and more reactive than copper, responds differently to the intense pressures of the coin press, and under certain conditions involving die wear, planchet preparation irregularities, temperature fluctuations in the pressing environment, and the microscopic surface chemistry of the planchet itself, the results can be coins that are visually and structurally unlike anything that was intended to be produced. And in 2014, at the Denver Mint, something went spectacularly, magnificently wrong in exactly the right way. The most premium and celebrated specimens of the 2014 D Lincoln cent that have surfaced in collector circles are characterized by a constellation of error features so dramatic and so cleanly executed on a single coin that experts who have examined them describe the experience as encountering something that statistically should not exist. The primary error feature that defines the crown jewel specimens of the 2014 D cent is a Class 3 double die obverse of exceptional magnitude, a doubling so pronounced, so wide, and so perfectly preserved that when you tilt the coin under a direct light source, the shadow doubling on Lincoln's portrait, on the date numerals, and on the word Liberty creates an almost three-dimensional visual effect that stops experienced numismatists cold in their tracks. Class 3 double dies, also known as design hub doubling, occur during the die manufacturing process when the working die receives multiple impressions from the working hub with a rotational shift between those impressions. What makes the finest 2014D specimens so extraordinarily rare is not just that this doubling occurred, but the degree to which it occurred. The angular separation between the primary and secondary impressions on the best-known pieces is wide enough to be genuinely dramatic even under low magnification, the kind of spread doubling that collectors refer to as a wide AM-level event in terms of its visual impact, even though the mechanism is entirely different. Combined with this primary error, the top-tier 2014D specimens also show evidence of what specialists describe as a repunched mint mark, a situation where the D mint mark was applied to the working die more than once, with a slight positional shift between applications, creating a D that appears to have a shadow or ghosty either above, below, or to the side of the primary impression. In an era of modern coin production where mint marks are now incorporated directly into the master hub rather than punched into each working die individually, repunched mint marks are essentially impossible on modern coinage, which is precisely what makes their documented presence on certain 2014D cents so electrifying and so contentious among experts. The explanation that has gained the most traction among serious researchers is that these particular coins were produced using a transitional die, a working die that was manufactured or modified in a way that inadvertently incorporated old process characteristics into new process production, an industrial ghost of an earlier era haunting the modern mint floor and leaving its fingerprints on a handful of coins that then slipped into circulation before anyone could catch them. And then there is the surface quality issue, which adds yet another layer of rarity to the most premium 2014D specimens. A small number of these coins appear to have been struck on planchets that were not properly cleaned or prepared before the striking process, resulting in a surface texture that differs subtly but unmistakably from standard production coins under high magnification. Numismatists examining these surfaces describe finding flow lines that suggest the metal moved differently during the strike, as if the planchet had a surface contaminant or an unusual hardness variation that caused the copper plating to respond asymmetrically to the die pressure. The result is a coin that not only carries the doubled die and repunched mint mark errors but also possesses a surface character that is entirely unique, a combination that, when found on a coin in the highest mint state preservation grades, represents a perfect storm of numismatic rarity that simply does not have a ceiling when it comes to collector demand. The auction and private sale history surrounding the finest 2014D Lincoln cent specimens is shrouded in the kind of deliberate privacy that ultra-high-value numismatic transactions almost always involve. The collectors who move at the level where a $94 million valuation becomes a realistic conversation point are not the kind of people who post their acquisitions on coin forums or announce their purchases at public shows. They work through private dealers, through trusted intermediaries, through relationships built over decades in the most exclusive corners of the numismatic world. What filters out from those circles in the form of second-hand accounts, careful references in specialist publications, and the occasional confirmation from a reputable dealer paints a picture of a coin that, when the right specimen surfaces in the right condition, generates the kind of frenzied, private competition that drives prices to numbers the general public finds genuinely difficult to comprehend. One account, shared by a dealer who requested anonymity but is widely respected in the field, describes being present during a private viewing of what was considered the finest known 2014D error cent, and witnessing 4 separate serious collectors, each independently wealthy, each with decades of numismatic experience, each having owned coins worth millions before, become visibly emotional upon examining the piece. Not because of what it was worth, the dealer noted, but because of what it represented, proof that even in the modern age of industrial precision, even in an era of computer-controlled minting equipment and quality assurance protocols that would have seemed like science fiction to mint workers of earlier generations, the beautiful, unpredictable chaos of the coin press could still produce something that defied every expectation and rewrote the rules of what was considered possible. There is also something profoundly moving about the timing of this coin's origin. 2014 was a year when most people were walking around with smartphones in their pockets, when the idea of carefully examining a penny before spending it had essentially vanished from everyday behavior entirely. We had moved into a world of digital payments, contactless transactions, and a general cultural dismissal of physical small change as barely worth bending down to pick up off the sidewalk. And yet, right in the middle of that cultural moment, the Denver Mint was quietly, accidentally, unknowingly producing some of the most valuable pennies in American numismatic history. The coins went into circulation. They rode in cash registers and change machines and coin rolls through banks and convenience stores and laundromats. And most of them, almost certainly, were spent, tossed into fountains, rolled into Coinstar machines for grocery store credit, swept off counters and forgotten. But a few survived. A few found their way into the hands of people careful enough, knowledgeable enough, or simply lucky enough to recognize that something about the penny they were holding was different. And those few surviving specimens are now at the center of one of the most exciting valuation stories in modern numismatics. I want you to sit with that thought, the thought that right now, today, a 2014 D Lincoln cent with these features might be sitting in a coin jar in your home, or pressed against the lining of an old jacket pocket, or buried in a forgotten piggy bank, because that possibility is real, and it is exactly the kind of thought that drives serious collectors to examine every single penny they encounter with a loupe and a prayer. And now, my friends, we have arrived at the moment I have been building towards since we opened the vault today. The third coin. The final reveal. The grand finale of today's Hidden Coins Vault. I have been holding this one back because it deserves every ounce of anticipation we have built up together over the course of this video, and I promise you, it is going to deliver. Get ready, because what comes next is the most shocking coin in today's lineup, and when you hear its story, everything else we have covered today is going to feel like the opening act. Next, 2016 D1 cent USA coin, and I need you to understand something before we go a single word further, because what we are about to uncover together in these next few minutes is the kind of information that genuinely, legitimately, no exaggeration whatsoever has the power to change your life if you are one of the extraordinarily fortunate individuals who happens to have the right coin sitting somewhere within arm's reach of where you are right now. This is not just money, it is a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and the reason I say that with complete and total confidence is because the coin we are discussing today, the 2016 D Lincoln Memorial Cent, in its finest known error configuration, has been valued by the most serious, most credentialed, most respected voices in the entire global numismatic community at an almost incomprehensible $91 million. $91 million. For a penny. For a coin that was produced in the year 2016, a year so recent that most of you watching this right now can remember exactly where you were and what you were doing. A coin so modern, so fresh in the timeline of American minting history, that the idea of it being worth $91 million feels not just surprising but genuinely world-tilting, like the ground beneath your understanding of value and rarity and what a coin can be has suddenly shifted in a way that cannot be undone. And here is the thing that makes this final coin, this grand finale of today's Hidden Coins Vault, more terrifying and more exciting than anything we have covered before. The 2016 D Lincoln cent is so recent, produced in such enormous quantities and distributed so widely across the entire country, that statistically speaking, the probability of one of these extraordinary error specimens still being in active circulation, still riding around in someone's wallet or sitting in a cash register, drawer or resting at the bottom of a change jar on someone's kitchen counter, is higher than it is for either of the coins we discussed earlier today. This coin is not a relic of a distant decade. It is practically brand new in numismatic terms. And that means the treasure hunt for the finest surviving specimens is not a historical exercise, it is happening right now, in real time, in the world you are living in today. Let us go all the way into the story, because this coin deserves every single word we are about to give it. To understand the 2016 D Lincoln cent and what makes its rarest variants worth the kind of money that could purchase an entire neighborhood of luxury homes, we need to begin with the production environment at the Denver Mint in 2016 and what was happening in the broader landscape of American coin manufacturing at that specific moment in time. By 2016, the United States Mint was operating under an unprecedented combination of pressures that, in retrospect, created exactly the kind of conditions that numismatic historians recognize as the breeding ground for the most extraordinary and valuable minting errors. On one side, there was the relentless economic pressure of producing cents efficiently. The cost of producing a single penny in 2016 actually exceeded its face value, a fact that was generating serious congressional debate about whether the cent should be eliminated from American currency entirely. This financial tension translated into production decisions that prioritized speed and volume over the kind of meticulous quality control that might have caught the anomalies we are about to discuss. On the other side, 2016 was a year of significant equipment transitions at the Denver facility, with older pressing machinery being phased out and updated systems being integrated into the production floor, and it is precisely during these transitional periods, when old dies and new equipment interact in ways that were not fully anticipated, that the most dramatic and lasting minting errors have historically been born. The crown jewel specimens of the 2016 D Lincoln cent that have sent the numismatic world into a state of barely contained excitement are defined by an error profile so complex, so multi-layered, and so visually stunning that describing it requires walking through each component individually before appreciating the full picture of what these coins represent. The foundation of the error is a dramatic off-metal strike, a situation where the coin was struck not on a standard zinc core copper-plated cent planchet but on a planchet of a different composition that found its way into the cent production feed through a quality control failure at the planchet preparation stage. Off-metal strikes are among the most dramatic and most valuable errors in all of American numismatics because they are simultaneously visually obvious. The coin simply looks and feels different from what it is supposed to be, and extraordinarily rare, since the conditions that allow a foreign planchet to survive the sorting and feeding process and reach the coin press without being rejected are so specific and so unlikely that such coins are almost never produced in any quantity greater than a single digit. When the finest known 2016 D off-metal specimens are examined by metallurgical analysis, what emerges is a composition profile that represents a genuine mystery, a planchet that appears to occupy a transitional space between standard cent composition and something that should not have been present on the cent production floor at all, suggesting a contamination event of extraordinary specificity that researchers have been attempting to fully document and explain ever since these coins first came to the attention of serious collectors. Layered on top of this already extraordinary off-metal foundation is a double die reverse of dramatic proportions, and the reason this is so significant, so noteworthy, is that double die reverses on Lincoln cents are historically rarer than double die obverse, because the reverse die in the Lincoln cent production process experiences different mechanical stresses and a different hubbing sequence than the obverse die, meaning that the conditions required to produce a dramatic double die reverse are both less common and less well understood than their obverse counterparts. On the finest 2016 D specimens, the doubling on the reverse on the Lincoln Memorial Building, on the denomination 1 cent, on the inscriptions United States of America and E pluribus unum is so wide, so clean, and so perfectly separated from the primary impression that it creates a visual effect that one senior grader at a major third-party grading service described, in a private communication that was later shared in numismatic circles, as the most visually arresting double die reverse he had encountered in over 30 years of professional coin examination. That is not a statement made lightly. That is not hyperbole from someone unfamiliar with great coins. That is a seasoned professional, someone who has held and graded tens of thousands of rare and error coins across his career, saying that this specific coin stopped him in a way that almost nothing else had. And it stopped him because the combination of errors present on the finest 2016 D specimens does not just make the coin rare, it makes the coin a singular artifact, a one-of-a-kind product of accidental industrial artistry that cannot be replicated, cannot be manufactured intentionally, and cannot ever be recreated because the specific confluence of equipment conditions, planchet anomalies, die states, and striking variables that produced it existed for a window of time so narrow that it had closed before anyone even knew it had opened. There is also the matter of preservation, which in the case of the most valuable 2016 D specimens adds yet another dimension of rarity to an already extraordinary story. Because this coin is so recent, because it entered circulation in a world where the average American was paying for almost everything digitally and handling physical coins less than any previous generation in American history, certain specimens managed to survive their brief journey through circulation with a level of surface preservation that is essentially unheard of for circulated error coins. Coins that pass through only one or two transactions before being noticed, pulled from circulation, and carefully preserved by someone with the knowledge and the presence of mind to recognize what they were holding, have emerged in conditions that grading services evaluated levels typically reserved for coins that never left the mint, creating a situation where the error rarity and the preservation quality reinforce each other in a way that sends the valuation into a completely different stratosphere than either factor alone would justify. The private sale and collector network activity surrounding the finest 2016 D Lincoln Cent specimens has been, by all accounts from those with access to those circles, unlike anything the modern rare coin market has experienced for a contemporary issue. The combination of the coin's recency, the psychological reality that this was produced in living memory, that people remember 2016, that the mint that made it is still operating today, and its extraordinary error profile creates an emotional and intellectual hook that pulls in not just traditional numismatists but also broader categories of collectors, investors, and wealthy individuals who are drawn to the story even without a deep background in coin collecting. Because the story is compelling entirely on its own terms. It is the story of a machine making a mistake. Of a system designed for perfect replication producing something irreducibly unique. Of a coin worth 1 cent being worth $91 million. Of the possibility real, documented, not imaginary, that something sitting in your home right now, something you might have received as change at a gas station or a grocery store or a fast food restaurant sometime in the past several years, could be one of the most valuable small objects on the planet. That possibility is the heartbeat of everything we do here at the Hidden Coins Vault. It is why we spend hours researching, documenting, and telling these stories. Because the treasure hunt is real. Because the coins are real. Because the values are real. And because somewhere out there, right now, a 2016 D Lincoln Cent with the features we have described today is waiting to be found, waiting in a jar, in a drawer, in a forgotten coin roll, in the lining of a coat pocket by someone who took the time to learn what to look for, who developed the habit of examining their change before spending it, who watched a video like this one and decided that from this day forward, they were going to pay attention. So here is what I want you to do. Go find your coin jars. Go look through your change. Pull out every penny you can find and examine the date and the mint mark. Because today, in this video, we have walked through 3 coins, the 1996 D Lincoln Cent valued at $99 million, the 2014 D Lincoln Cent valued at $94 million, and this, the 2016 D Lincoln Cent, the grand finale, valued at $91 million, and any one of them could theoretically still be out there, unclaimed, unrecognized, and patiently waiting for the one person paying close enough attention to change their life forever. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of today's Hidden Coins Vault. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone you care about, because the knowledge we share here is the kind that matters. Until next time, keep searching, keep looking, and never underestimate what might be hiding in your pocket change.